It's been a very difficult contest, not because the contest itself was difficult, but because of the so many interference by people who are outside the constituency. That really made it very difficult. And if you remember, on that day, I've been involved in the electoral process for a very long period of time. I mean, I was part of the team that supported our second MP. So I can say from all the way from 1997, I've always been involved in the election in this constituency. But this was shocking for me that, one, if you want to prioritize 47 constituency for NDC in Asante, everybody knows that Asawase is number one, because that is where we have the largest votes, followed by, what do you call it, Ejura, New Dubiase, and Afram Plains, such as Afram Plains. For whatever reason, how could you move the ballot papers for presidential for Asawase and leave the parliamentary? And that culminated into the excessive delay that you saw. I mean, that led to this very delay that we had to. I think the whole of this country, Asawase was the last to declare. And I think that, you see, you don't throw the baby with the bathwater. We need to be very careful as a party. Because if you allow individuals, whether, I don't want to call it, whether hatred or dislike, to do things that, at the end of the day, almost mar. Because can you imagine if something nasty had happened as Asawase? It was not only going to end with the primaries, but it was going to affect the NDC fortune itself in Asawase. So my wish and prayer is that, yeah, we may have our differences. I mean, it is normal. Even in a family, periodically you have your differences. But this kind of open hatred and open interference in Asawase constituency primaries, I think the party Council of Elders needs to investigate. And I'm told that it's not only in Asawase. Out of the 100 and over 100 MPs that are contested, I've had complaints from so many MPs what one national officer or the other have done in their constituency. It's when you do that, whether the person wins or not, or loses, it's very difficult for you to carry the person along. Because then the person begins to harbor pain. But thank God, in my case, believe me, I put everything behind me. The most important thing is that to focus on 2024 and make sure that because 2024 is a must win for NDC. Because look, for those of us who have spent all our youthful age in Parliament and for that matter, trying to serve the party, we cannot afford not to win 2024 because we know the repercussion. We will have been the first political party in the Fourth Republic to have not been able to break the 8-year rule, where after every 8 years, government is changed. And its repercussion will be so dire on the party itself and our survival. So my plea with my colleagues who may be hurt about one thing or the other, whether they've lost or they've won, is that, look, let's put all this thing behind us, because as we ourselves admit, it is just some few people within the party who were doing those things, not like a decision of the party to interfere in those constituencies, but it is just one individual or another who have chosen on their own, elected themselves to do that. So we shouldn't just paint the whole of our party with one brush. We may identify those individuals and then try to make an official complaint to the Council of Elders where you think you feel very strongly. Other than that, for me, you let bygone be bygone. These are all part of the lessons of life. You learn from them. And especially for those of us who have won, we should just pick it as part of the strife and then be able to move on. It is not suspicion. I mean, look, we've been involved. If anybody tried to make an explanation, then I would say that that person should move out of the election directorate of NDC. Because you see, if you are moving material, and even let's assume you cannot move all of them at a go, you have to prioritize. And I'll ask, in Asante, if you are prioritizing, which constituency will be your priority? Your first priority will be constituencies where we have sitting MPs, because that is your strong area. And in the case of Asante, it's only 4. So if you try to make any explanation to this, I will say that you are so incompetent that you should be moved out of the election directorate, because you don't know what you are doing. And then that is one. And then 2, you don't move materials separately, presidential separate from parliamentary. For every constituency, you put them together so that when they are moving, You know that both presidential and parliamentary have arrived. How do you move them separately? It shows incompetence. If anybody is going to provide any explanation that it is not deliberate, then it simply means that the person is very incompetent. The person should not be allowed to be in the election director. Because if that person continues to be in the election director, they will cost us the 2024 election. So if it is not deliberate, then you are incompetent. You don't need to be there. So the only thing that I will say, because it is so basic, for me, it is so basic. If it was in Volta region, where you have 17 constituencies, and it's only one constituency that we don't have, and then this happened, you say that, look, if I try to even prioritize, all the constituencies are a priority. I get it. Or you say that you are even in the northern region, you have 9 constituencies that are sitting MP. Maybe the movement, the van that is moving there, cannot carry 9 constituencies at a time. But this is Asante region, where you have only 4 seats. That is your sitting constituencies. And you can afford to make this mistake. What shows that during the main election itself, you will not be making the same mistakes? So I'm providing caveat that, let's assume it's not deliberate. But if it's not deliberate, then we need to watch. Asawase is the biggest constituency NDC has in Asante region. It has a sitting MP. I mean, there was this contest that, can you imagine, even the venue for the election was a subject of functional executive discussion. How? How will that happen? You have the constituency, you have the region, and somebody will carry it to the national for functional executive to be discussing Asawase venue. What a shame. This is very embarrassing for the party. There were a lot of, look, you see, there were officers. So I keep saying that, look, it is painful, but we are struggling to put it behind us. You have a national officer who chose to come in to campaign with my opponent. And nobody in this party said anything. I'm not going to mention it because, like I told you, I want to put it behind me. You have a national officer who was calling business people and telling them not to support me. They should rather support my opponent. How will you do that? Okay, God is not your village chief. Now I've won. I'm not just, with a greater respect, some small ant in a soup that you can scoop. So long as NDC matters. Everybody in this country knows that I'm not an ant that you can just scoop up. Now you've done this. You want the party to move ahead in unity. It has not only been done in my place. It has been done in so many places. People who were not supposed to be qualified, they were qualified and cleared using all manner of nuances. Now some of them have survived, some have lost. How are you going to forge this unity? We have a lot of work to do. My prayer is that all of us, because I believe that for every member of parliament, he knows the consequences of we losing 2024. So that singular threat of our party suffering if we do not win 2024 should be enough reason for all of us to let bygone be bygone. Let's forgive, but these are lessons that we must all learn, and then make sure that we forge ahead and work so hard so that at least for the survival of all of us, we'll be able to sail 2024. I've always had a principle in my life. We don't need to be friends to work together. We don't need to love each other to work together. We have rules that we have to play. I have my role I have to play as a member of parliament and the candidate. And then the executives have their role to play. And I believe that we can play those things very effectively without necessarily being friends. But you see, there are so many things that he has said. I wrote officially to the party. Nobody has responded. Because some of the things that he said, if you say that Asawase will be embarrassing people outside this constituency into the constituency, that is a very serious thing for a constituency chairman to say. Because this is something that we keep preventing MPP from doing into our constituency. Now you claim that we do that. If the party brushes this aside, well, like I say, we don't need to be friends to work together. We need to put the party interest above our individual interests so that we'll be able to forge ahead and work together. It is my prayer that we are able to maybe probably do 30,000 difference. So by trying to push our vote to about 60,000. Yes, that would be our target. You know, in the case of parliamentary, even if you win with one vote, you won. But I believe that Asawase has the potential to mop up votes that will support our presidential bid. And that will be our focus. We'll focus to ensure that we garner so much for the presidential. Because like I said, winning 2024 is so crucial for the survival of our party. And we cannot leave any stone unturned. Our prayer is that all those who had been poking their nose and fingers into the constituency, now that, this is over, I hope they will equally put the party interest above any other thing, so that anything that we have to do, we will get to do it very well, and so that we can be successful when it comes to 2024. Well, like I said, when this thing happened, and His Excellency John Dramani Mahama called both myself and Haruna and Aveji to plead with us to let go. I'll let go. But I can tell you, it was part of the strategy to get me out. No any political person who is mature will not say that that was part of the strategy to get me out. Because Aveji was not going to contest. Haruna didn't have any contender. I was the only one who had a contender, right? So to have done that at that time was part of the strategy to get me out. But you know, I keep saying, God is not their village chief. God doesn't hate people because you hate them. God doesn't dislike people because you dislike them. God, He looks at our hearts. And I keep saying that, you see, when we do the things that we are doing, what we are simply doing is that we are making people who sacrifice for the party, who put their life online, begin to ask whether it is worth it. Everybody in this country will attest to the fact, I have grown this constituency from 2005 to now. This constituency has become an icon in the region. Even within the Lions Den, in Parliament, everybody who follows Parliament knows that I have fought so well for my party over this period. Let's assume, for heaven's sake, that I don't even know the reason why some of the people were doing the thing that they were doing. Is that how we treat people? Even the God who created us on Judgment Day, there's scale to weigh your strength and weakness to determine what judgment to be given. And you have people who are fending from my sweat. When I say fending from my sweat, is that, look, God used me to get a speaker in place. Everybody in this country will not deny that. Now with that, you have a lot of NDC people there. Some have not got the ability to be traveling, things that they don't get to do. People are paid every month and whatever. Yet those people, some of them, who have gotten this opportunity, are those who are fighting together. You think God is your village, your anchor? God doesn't pay goodness with evil. Because for anything at least, you should remember that at least I have done something good before. So if even you now have a beef with me, you have to consider those things. But don't make it look as if I've never done anything good. But the way it was, that the time the coup happened, it was simply to culminate my removal from Parliament. But God doesn't think like you. God looks at our hearts. Now, by the grace of God, I've survived the primaries. And by the grace of God, I'm going to survive the main election. And I'll be in Parliament. Because when God was planning that I'll go to Parliament, and these are the number of things that I will do in Parliament before maybe I'll leave, God didn't discuss that with you. He didn't discuss it with you. So you cannot determine when I quit. It's only the God who can determine that. It has always been my star. Then the person doesn't know Asawase. It has always been my star. Hardly 3 months come without me meeting. We don't call the delegate. We call them delegate only when it's election. They are branch executives. And they will attest to the fact. I meet them regularly. In the last, 1.5 year, since 2017, 2021, 2022, so that's about 2.5 years. None of them can count how many times we met in the very places that we met. And you know the funny thing? Yes, when all these things were going on, I kept my calm. I knew what I was doing. Technically, I used only 11 days. I used only 11 days to meet the delegates. Because I had to wait to see all the things that they were saying. And then when I met them, then I was giving examples. This one is telling you this. Ask him, have I not sent him to Hajj? Have I not given him motorbike? Have I not gotten him a job? So if he's telling you that I have not helped, ask him, what is that? So, and God knows our heart and the sincerity. And I keep telling them, if you say you are going to prioritize, everything you are going to do is based on only delegates, you will lose the election. Because in Asawase, there are only about 2,000 delegates. But the voters who are NDC, they are over 70,000. So if I concentrate on you, you yourself, you'll be endangered. Because the next time, people will come and push you out. So for every one delegate, I have to be thinking about 5 others. And thank God, many of them understood the concept that, look, what we were being told was deceptive. It is not practical. And I keep telling them, look, you have about 2,000. If someone says that, oh, I'm coming to help you, okay, let's assume every month you send you 500 Ghana. 2,000 of you, that's 1 million Ghana cedis. 1 million Ghana cedis is more than the MP salary for the whole 4 years, including his ex-gasha. Does it make sense to you? Then they began realizing that, oh, it is more about like the MPP promises, the discussion will come there and all that. The 1 million per constituency every year, the 1 village, 1 dam, all those things. Now they began to realize that, oh, the thing is a host. Because the things that they are saying, in practical terms, you cannot really relate them. And I was giving an example of the things that almost everything they say they are going to do is something they have been doing. So I thank the delegates sincerely for the confidence they reposed in me. I hope and pray that the generality of the party and the generality of the people in Asawase will continue to support me. I mean, you have been going around the conference. You could see that when it comes to the general population, I don't have a problem at all. It was just because these people were few and people thought that they could confuse the few people and make them take a decision that is wrong. But thank God, majority of them have taken the right decision. And all I would say is that I thank them from the bottom of my heart. We'll continue to do the best that we can. When I came around, they made some suggestions that were very useful. I can assure them that I'll implement those suggestions moving forward. Because that's how life is. As you move, you pick other suggestions, you implement them in addition to what you've been doing, just to improve what you are doing. And that's exactly what I'll be doing.